and we did not see Kenny Rogers there this time.
This time.
Right, this time.
We frequently do.
Right, last time we were there, we saw somebody who looked exactly like Kenny Rogers. We couldn't imagine it wasn't. So we had a discussion with AI in which he assured us that Kenny Rogers is dead, and we insisted, no, we just saw him. And I think that led to another series of books or so.
Yes, it was very funny how AI was humoring us.
Well, and it was,
I've
had a lot of discussions with authors about AI lately, and one of them was talking about, or maybe it was you, who was telling me how it begins to learn what you think by what you've done, and it adjusts to you. So it started off insisting Kenny Rogers is dead. You can't have seen him. He can't have come back to life. And the more we talked, pretending, no, we really saw him, it started to sort of adjust its answers, which is funny, but I think that people should really be aware. You can't just ask AI and think you're getting the gospel truth. Right. And that's that. So that was interesting. Other than that, I sold my first bottle of spice. So we live on a farm and I've been drying herbs, and I sold a bottle of cayenne. It was so exciting. And then my company published Stolen by Schizophrenia by Rebecca May Hope. And so that is about mental illness, obviously. It's about her, I was about to say her wife, her mother and her sister, who both developed schizophrenia, and about how very differently they were treated in the different eras, one in the kind of late 50s, early 60s, and the other in the 2010, something like that. So it's a very interesting book. How about you?
What about Reading and Sheep?
Yeah, reading.
I know something happened with sheep.
This is my big reading for this month. It was a very muddy Christmas. So,
we have a very muddy every day here.
Yeah, pretty much our lives are muddy. So I go out in the morning and Boo Bear jumps up and slaps his paws like on my shoulders, and he's looking me in the face, and then I'm just mud all down my arms.
He's basically a cross between a Yeti and Mount McKinley. He's a big boy.
He's adorable.
Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing our guest is very interesting this month, Laura. Would you introduce her?
Yes. So this month, Kristie Wolf is our guest. She weaves tales about fearless heroes and heroines who fight for justice and love while burning up the pages. Kristie's passion for writing romance ignited during her teenage years when she told her mom she was going to write a novel someday. She did, and now she can't stop. As the daughter of a Vietnam veteran, wife of a Marine, and a Navy mom, she enjoys writing happily ever afters for not just military heroes, but for all the brave, loyal, and selfless men and women who protect and serve our country in every capacity. Welcome, Kristie. It is great to finally meet you. This was arranged months ago, so...
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for your family service. That's really quite awesome.
Yes. I was very interested in that. Just curious, what branch was your dad in?
He was in the Air Force.
Okay, so is mine. So we might have lived in some of the same places. And then my son was a Marine. He's out, but once a Marine, always Marine.
Yep.
And his son in the Army.
Yep, and our son is in the Army too. So
well, thank them for their service.
Yep.
Thank you.
So are we ready for cocktail number one?
I think we are. And this is, boy, this is going to have just, wonderful love written all over it. This is a strawberry buttercream martini. And we're going to have
what? Yes, we'll soon see why.
Yes.
That sounds lovely.
The ingredients look lovely, just imagining them all together. So you can start with some vanilla vodka. We happen to have some whipped cream vodka, which along with caramel vodka should probably be banned. They're just a little too good. Then we have...
This will be good.
Yes. Some tequila rose, strawberry liqueur.
Ooh.
And then, of course, we head right to the butterscotch schnapps.
Oh, wow. That sounds sinful.
Right. I mean, it's not getting any less sinful the more we mix these things. But
There,
of course, yes, go ahead.
there are a few drinks that as the ingredients go in, I go, I'm not going to like this. But this is one where I think we're really going to have to limit ourselves. The heavy whipping cream just went in.
Yes, we put in some heavy cream
Oh,
and a little bit of simple syrup. Because of course it wasn't sweet enough with all that other stuff in it. And interestingly, we also add just a tiny pinch of salt because that actually brings out the buttercream note
oh,
So
of the drink.
most months he chooses the cocktails. This month I did. This was a hard choice whether I was going to go with the flavors in the cake or whether I was going to go with this talk of metallic and so on. And so you can see you can buy silver. Now, I don't think this is actual silver, but brewer's silver is.
uh-huh.
And there is some drinks that have really neat effects by putting silver in.
Wow.
And they'll just glitter and shine. But some of the ingredients were maybe a little exotic and a little harder to find in a small town. And here we've got the salt on the rim.
It's actually the sugar.
Sugar.
It's,
Okay.
pink and-
Oh,
and-
even better. I'm not a salt person. I'm a sugar person.
And now we have our wonderful strawberry buttercream martini
Nice.
serving up in these glasses. And a drink like this, the way they make them so good, you know, the ingredients, it's kind of like, I think you could almost think you could bathe in something like this. You know?
In the 1920s, they did things like that.
Right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
They look so, that drink looks so pretty with your glittery nail polish.
It almost matches, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Also add a little
Oh, yeah, never forget the whipped
the
cream.
dollop of whipped cream.
No.
on top.
There's whipped cream. So cheers again.
Yes, cheers to the whipped
Here.
cream.
Cheers with my mug here.
Go ahead with reading number 1.
This is the second chapter in the book. It's the first scene in Beth's point of view. And she is picking up a cake for an engagement party for Chris and Scarlett, who were the hero and the heroine from book 1. So here we go. Beth Parker braced her hands on the glass bakery counter. You gave my cake to someone else. It's only an hour and a half past the time I said I'd pick it up. Well, it was 90 minutes past the time Beth had wanted to pick it up, but the network in her lap at the National Agency for Health had been down half the day again and had royally screwed up her schedule. She needed that damn cake, but yelling at the team behind the counter who kept glancing at her phone wouldn't do any good. Counting to 5 in her head, Beth clung to the last of her patience. Maybe there was a mix-up. I'm here to pick up a vanilla pound cake with strawberry filling, red flowers, and silver-dusted buttercream frosting. It's for an engagement party. More like a let's celebrate your impending nuptials while the groom-to-be is between deadly missions kind of celebration. Beth shivered. The sudden chill had nothing to do with the deep freeze blanketing the Washington, D.C. area and everything to do with her best friend marrying a literal super soldier. Scarlett, and Beth as her supporting bestie, didn't take a full breath whenever Chris and his Project Viper teammates deployed. Today had been a hard-to-breathe kind of day until they gotten word that the Viper boys had returned safe and sound from their latest assignment. What kind of assignment? She had no idea. Scarlett knew most of the details since she used to be Project Viper's Chief Information Security Officer and now headed up technology innovation across the military. She wasn't at liberty to share what the guys did when the Department of Defense called them away at a moment's notice, and Beth didn't want to know. The military hadn't given them sleek, black, artificial limbs that looked like they belonged on sci-fi superheroes for goodwill reasons. According to the public, the Department of Defense established the Veterans Integration, Placement, and Recovery Program to give Special Forces amputees a second chance at their military careers in security detail roles. Security detail my ass. Last week, when she'd met Scarlett and the Viper boys for dinner, the waitstaff was scrambling to move a massive table set for 12. Chris and Nick had lifted it like it was a piece of children's furniture set for a tea party. The waitress had been so appreciative of Nick's bionics arm, she'd slipped him her number. No, super arm. Super is what Scarlett said the Viper boys like to call the technological marvels they've been outfitted with. And damn, were they a marvel to witness. They moved their enhanced parts more gracefully than she moved her flesh and bone ones. According to Scarlett, the bionic limbs were permanently attached to their bodies. No straps, no harnesses, a seamless melding of steel and flesh that was beautiful and tragic at the same time. Beth spent many nights wondering what the marriage of man and machine looked like underneath their clothes. Well, what it looked like underneath the clothes of one Viper boy in particular, and that had to stop. The teen chomped on her gum as she opened a binder on the counter and leafed through it. Red flowers, you say? She eyed Beth's glittery silver nail polish and metallic dusting because you obviously like bling. And I love your coat. It twinkled like 50 shades of purple under the streetlights when you walked in. Thanks. Beth ran her fingers over the faux fur cuff. Now about my cake. Oh, I remember now. How could I forget? My boss gave it to your husband a few minutes ago. Beth slammed her palms onto the glass countertop. My what? The color drained from the teen's face as she retreated. You didn't send your husband to get it? A knee skated down Beth's spine as she swung her head to the door. He's not here. I'm safe. The emptiness in her affirming mantra didn't stop anxiety from rippling toward full-blown alarm. I don't have a husband. I don't even have a boyfriend. Who the hell did you give my cake to? The teen backed through a door. Let me get my boss. Beth nodded, afraid if she opened her mouth, she'd beg the teen not to leave her alone in the empty storefront. He's not here. I'm safe. She whispered it again as she dipped her hand into her enormous tote bag and wrapped her fingers around the small pistol at the bottom. The security of the warm metal grounded her, but didn't stop the past from hammering in her resolve not to hide behind the counter and cry.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Give a little background on the series. And is this do you have one series or do you have multiple?
I have one series. It's the Project Viper series, and it's about a team of special forces amputees, and the military has given them bionic weaponized prosthetics and turned them into super soldiers. So in book 1, he thinks he's too dangerous to love because this bionic arm that he has shoots deadly lasers, and he falls for the shy scientists that helped create him.
Okay.
And there's a little bit of sci-fi in terms of the technology. As Chris knows, the technology is there for, amputees to control their limbs with their minds, right? But
really?
Lasers out of their prosthetics yet. But my super soldiers are, and everything is controlled with their brain. And so all they have to do is, think of commands of fire, and it comes out of their artificial limb and hits their victim where they want it to.
And so what inspired you to write? I think the whole series, the heroes are always amputees, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was that inspired by the Bionic Man or by something else?
No, I was
By the way, we live just south of where Lee Majors grew up, so
In Millsboro, Kentucky.
we're
yes.
like that with the Bionic Man.
That's right. Yeah.
I had seen a book by a photographer by the name of Michael Stokes in 2016. I had just finished my second novel. It was a contemporary. I thought I was going to be just a straight up contemporary author. And he had done this book called Always Loyal. And it was these really hot, sexy photos of wounded warriors. And they were all, for the most part, amputees. Okay. And I looked through that book and I said to myself, I want to write about an amputee, right? Like these men and women deserve happily ever afters. And so I thought I was going to write a cute contemporary about maybe a veteran and his service dog. Maybe he'd fall in love with his doctor or his physical therapist, but that's the total opposite of what I wound up writing.
So what drew you toward romance to begin with?
Oh, I've been reading romance since I was 12 or 13 years old. My mother is an avid romance reader. There were Harlequins all around my house, historicals with Fabio on the cover, and half-naked pirates and Vikings and dukes. Both of my grandmothers read romance. We lived in a 2-family house, and the woman upstairs was an avid reader, and she would leave brown paper bags outside of her door, filled to the top with romance novels for my mom and I. I don't think I actually purchased a romance novel until I was in my 20s. Because they were always around. Like my mom had stacks of them. My grandmothers would give them to me, the lady upstairs. And so I had no need to go to the bookstore and buy one because they were just, it was like magic. Like I finished 5 and 2 more appeared.
Yeah, that's interesting because I have never been much of a romance reader. I've enjoyed interviewing romance authors because I have a certain view of romance, or I should say I did, and the more I talked to romance authors, I was like, wow, this is not all just, shallow, trashy Harlequin. And I learned a lot. And listening to you, I think, well, no wonder I was never drawn to romance. We never had anything like that in the house. You know, my dad had books on physics. So when I was in first grade, I was trying to read his books on physics. And like the total opposite of romance, unless you're Dr. Q, of course.
I can make quantum very romantic. Yeah.
But that's a really interesting point, that it's what we're surrounded by as we grow up. Now, does anything like Viper, I'm assuming it doesn't really exist, but because my dad was also in the Air Force, there are things happening that the average citizen has no clue of till 30 years later.
Yeah, when I was working on this book, and it was in draft, and there's a doctor in the federal, in the federal scape, who speaks for us frequently, and we have a relationship, a good relationship. And I called him up and I said, hey, can I send you some paragraphs and some sentences, just to make sure that it kind of makes sense. Like, this is a romance. The technology is, very secondary, right? And I can't bore my readers with, how everything is engineered, but I need a few buzzwords, right? So can you help me out? And I sent it to him, and he was wonderful, and he did. And he said, Kristie, this isn't science fiction. He said, this technology is absolutely possible, and there are countries that are experimenting with it. And we are not, because we have ethics, but other countries don't.
Okay. Which has been a long standing, because I don't remember the details, but I know that medicine and science have benefited from the experiments that were done on prisoners in concentration camps. And that's been a long-standing question. Well, these people suffered, died, and gained knowledge that can help other people. And that's a very hard ethical question.
Yeah.
Never mind, not doing it deliberately. And I'm glad we have the ethics not to do it deliberately.
Well, most of it's about performance augmentation too. I've worked with PEO Soldier and Army Program Executive Office, and also DARPA. They're constantly putting out, requests for, research projects on performance augmentation. An average military mission can easily last 36 to 48 hours. And during that time, there's maybe no sleep, no eating. Right. How do you keep a soldier going, during that, as well as also to be able to take more weight? The average soldier ruck now can be upwards of 100 pounds, and if I got to hike that a ways, how am I going to do that, and things. So but a lot of it is just kind of standard performance augmentation, as well as to handle return to service for people now that would never have been considered for that if they were amputees or things like that, but now can be, if they had performance augmentation. So yes.
I am wondering, you say you write steamy romance. Do you get pretty graphic?
The door is wide open.
Okay.
My characters are not morally gray. There's no BDSM. There's nothing overly kinky, but yeah, they are steamy. They're like a 3.5 to 4 on the chili pepper scale, and I don't hold anything back.
Okay. And so, because they have these prosthetic limbs that are, for lack of a better word, welded, seamed to their body, how do you deal with that? Do they seem to be kind of normal physically, apart from one arm is metallic or something?
Yes. And so that's where not getting, my readers don't care about how, the nuances of how these limbs have been attached to their bodies, right? I just say seamless. I just say no straps, no harnesses. I have given some tattoo work where the limbs are attached to cover the scarring. And so it all just kind of melds together, in the cover. That's my designer suggested that we do that. And then I worked that into the book. And, that they have super strength. And so that makes for a lot of fun in some of my scenes. And I write them as, sexy and out of this world, and my heroines see them as superheroes, and, sci-fi characters come to life who will burn the world down for them.
All right. And so when did you actually start writing?
I've been writing since I was a teenager. Okay. I was the person who I could get an A on an essay or a test and never have read the book. Not even read the cliff notes, right? I just read the back of the book. I listened to what the teacher was saying. I talked to a few friends. I didn't read it. If I had no interest in it, I wasn't reading it. And yeah, and then I had romance books to read, but I couldn't do a simple algebra problem.
How are all the books in the series related to each other? And I think there are 9 of them right now.
Oh no, there's 3 of them right now.
Oh, somewhere
Yeah.
I thought I read 9, or is
No,
it you have 9 total?
I've written 9 books. I've published 4,
Okay.
and there's 3 in this series. So Too Dangerous to Love is book 1. This is Chris and Scarlett's book. Scarlett has a best friend, Beth, who's the heroine in book 2, and Beth falls in love with Kane. And Kane has a twin sister, Olivia, who falls in love with Nick in book 3.
All right.
And there's one more guy on my team, Lincoln. He will get his love story at the end of next year, and I'm working on a prequel that's going to be free for my newsletter subscribers in July as a special treat for them, and then I'll
nice.
publish it in August. And we're going to get the love story of the surgeon who saved Chris's life when he lost his arm. So the book opens up, he's already minus an arm, and the surgeon, Dr. Hudson Langley, we meet him at the end of the book, and he's in the other 2 books briefly. We're going to circle back to when he fell in love, how he fell in love with his wife, Tessa, and the things that he went through to get to Project Viper. So you were talking about like, the ethics and things like that, right? With technology like this. I just want to point out that my heroine, Scarlett, deals with issues like that in the book.
I think all your heroines are part of the program, right?
They do become, well, in book 1, she is part of the program. They're all scientists or doctors. They are all very intelligent, and they're all scientific.
Well, our next drink, we were kind of struck by indigo eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have here, we're going to have an Empress and Tonic. So Empress makes this wonderful 1908 indigo gin, and it's made with a butterfly pea flower, which the neat thing about this is that it's color changing. So depending upon which other mixers or alcohol you mix with it, it will change from an indigo to like a light green or light blue. So it becomes a very neat kind of a drink to have in a bar. Plus the butterfly pea also
Touched it on my knee.
well, yes,
This should get my knee out of the way.
it's not the easiest thing to pour this stuff into a martini glass. I'll just put it that way without creating a little bit of a backsplash. And I don't do those things like you've seen in some of the movies where you toss the bottles up in the air. It would just make a horrible mess. And so now we're going to add in some tonic water to the Empress. And already the deep indigo is becoming a little more lavenderish. And then we have just a tiny bit of lime juice.
So it was a much deeper purple before he poured in the tonic, and I have a picture of that.
And then we'll add just a little bit of the lime juice, which should start to make a little bit of a color change.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see the color changing.
Yeah, it's deeper.
And it's interesting from where I'm sitting, it looks like it's different shades
Yes,
from the top
it'll
to the
be a
bottom.
little bit layered,
Yes.
as
Yeah.
you see, because of different specific gravities. So cheers.
Cheers.
The Empress and
That was an easy
Tonic.
drink.
Well, I love how you worked the buttercream and the strawberry and the cake into the first one.
I was amazed when I found that recipe. I used AI, of course. Is there any cocktail that has all of these? I didn't think there was any chance.
That one sounds great.
This one is a little more tart. You know, to me, the main attraction is the color is so beautiful.
And depending upon how much you like tonic, of course, and then the gin itself, of course, is a powerful flavor.
Yeah.
So it's very traditional, but very good. So I think we're ready for reading number 2.
All right. And this is towards the end of Scarlett and Chris's engagement party after her cake has been stolen, and the party is taking place at Beth's house. So here we go. Beth trudged up the stairs. The throbbing in her head increased with each step. At the top, she leaned against the wall. The cake stealing incident compounded her apprehension about going home tomorrow for her town's annual Christmas party. Last year, she let her nerves rob her of the annual tradition. She wouldn't let that happen again. As she pushed off the wall, her phone buzzed with a text alert. She pulled the device from her pocket and looked at the message. Pain, as raw as the day a pair of savage hands broke her wrist, seized her breath. Her vision blurred as the message jumbled into nonsense. She barely made out the sound of heavy footsteps rushing towards her as she dropped the phone and lunged for her bedroom door. Strong, real hands, not the remembered kind from her nightmare, grasped her upper arms from behind. Not again, not again. She ducked her head and twisted like she'd been trained to. An insistent voice saying her name froze her mid-motion. Kane, it's Kane, not him. He's not here. Kane spun her to face him. What's wrong? Laughter from the partygoers tunneled into her ringing ears. Remembered pain zipped up her arm. Fresh fear raced to catch up. He's not here. I'm safe. Kane picked up her phone, his other hand securely on her hip, and backed her into the bedroom. His scowl deepened as he looked at the message. The sprinkles on the cake froze into tiny ice shards that pricked her gut with each frightening word he read. Is this from the dickhead who hurt you? She dropped her gaze and stared at her feet. Curling her toes inside her heels, she closed her eyes and willed her legs to stop shaking. The cake stealer didn't hurt me. Kane closed the distance between them in 2 long strides, but someone did. The terror on your face is the same as when I took you to the hospital and you made every excuse not to go in. And it's the same as when I watched you have a nightmare in my truck on the way home and then later in this bed. He nudged her with his hand. Come on, Beth, you can tell me what haunts you. She jerked back from his touch. Panic vibrated under her skin like a thundercloud about to burst into a Category 5 hurricane. Wrapping her arms around her middle, she fought the urge to launch herself into Kane's strong arms. Unlike the last time they were in her bedroom, she wouldn't put herself in a position to be pushed away again. Some guy stalked me online a couple of years ago. Kane didn't need to hear the entire twisted tale, and she didn't trust herself to tell it without breaking down. She was a master at pretending everything was okay, at least on the outside. She'd worked her ass off to manage her fears enough to be a functioning member of society, but all the training and preparation in the world couldn't stop the message from pulsing in her vision. Your cake was almost as pretty as you, Karita. Memories careened from the cage where she'd imprisoned them. Like rabid dogs, they pounced as brutally as if her fears were slabs of raw meat. Her breathing sped up along with her heartbeat as she fought to control her spiraling thoughts. He's not here. I'm safe. But even as her brain battled to believe the words, her body retreated until her knees hit the bed. Kane glanced at the message again. His chest rose and fell as he studied the single sentence. You said that the cake stealer spoke to the owner in Spanish. Querida is Spanish for sweetheart, darling, and all sorts of other things a creepy stalker might call you. I know what it means, but she wasn't letting her trauma take the spotlight. Tonight was about Scarlett. Straightening her spine, she pulled in a slow, fortifying breath. When the house was empty, she'd sit on the couch with the lights on, her eyes on the front and back door, and her gun in her hand. Right now, the urgency to go back to doing something normal, like giving Scarlett an engagement party without the past crashing the festivities, shook her harder than her fear. I've got to get back downstairs. He blocked her escape. Who texted you? Move, Kane. Linking something for his headache, and Scarlett and Chris are leaving soon. And she looked away from the indigo flecks in his eyes. The determination in their depths matched the intensity of her fears. He clamped his hands on her shoulders and seated her on the bed. Dropping to his knees, he caged her in with his body. She tried to rise, but he shielded her like an impenetrable wall. None of this is your business, Kane. Hell, none of it should be anybody's business. She'd hoped this twisted chapter of her life was over. She'd even begun to believe it, but deep down, she'd known her stalker would return, just as she knew Kane would protect her from him. She couldn't let him.
I really liked about this scene that I think we've gotten used to the trope of the woman who is so tough that, nothing phases her. She's raped, she's tortured, she's kidnapped, and she's still, I'm so tough, I'm going to kick you in the face with my stiletto heels. And she has, come on. I'm not going to name the book, but there was one where the main character, I finally realized this all happened within 4 months. He's been hiding in a cave. He's had his nephew kidnapped. He's had a bullet graze literally through the side of his head here. I forget what all else. He's survived a massive hurricane at sea. And I'm thinking, and probably some more than that, all of this within 4 months, and you're totally unfazed. I'm not buying it. You're not even saying, man, I need a nap. You're just like, let's keep going. So
There's enough performance-enhancing drugs. You don't need that.
Right. Giving away the book, they were then running away from British soldiers and stopped to have sex on a rock in the middle of a stream. And I'm like,
I remember this book. Yes.
No, you didn't. Suspension of disbelief is gone. I don't care how horny you are. You did not stop to do that outdoors while British soldiers are chasing you, trying to kill you. So I like that author's work, but that was, like, come on. So I was glad to see that she's having some reaction, clearly some PTSD. Have you kind of seen this close up? Do you have some personal experience, or is this based on research?
Well, my dad suffers from terrible PTSD from Vietnam. And so it's been almost 60 years. And he still has flashbacks and he still has nightmares. So I know firsthand that trauma like that does not go away.
Right.
I have someone in my immediate family who suffered some trauma, and 2.5 years later, that trauma is still there, and there's triggers for it, and that's never leaving either. And so, like the whole reason why people can't fall in love is the core of a romance novel. I had an editor tell me if their conflict can be solved over a cup of coffee, it's not strong enough. And so, the core wounds that your characters have that keep them from falling in love, they should go back to their childhood. They should go back years. They should be festering for a long time. And they've become the lies that we tell ourselves. I'm too dangerous to love in book 1. I'm a human weapon. I have hurt people. My mind's a mess because I have PTSD. And I can't bring a woman into my bed. I can't bring a woman into my life. I'll hurt her. And I'm too lethal to love. And this is her core wounds, not his. And I won't, the book by why she thinks she's too lethal to love. But at the end of that scene, she said, and I know that Kian's going to protect me and I can't let him. And that's not because she's a strong woman. That's because she's got some deep-seated beliefs that are totally untrue, that she knows are untrue, but she can't let it go. That's back to her childhood.
I find this very interesting, and I think this applies to probably all the other romance writers I've spoken to, that one of the reasons I've read a few romance novels probably more than 30 years ago, probably closer to 40 years ago, and I got frustrated with them because it seemed that very often the goal of a certain style of romance was you find the perfect man. Well, okay, if you have the perfect man, but there needs to be conflict, who's doing and saying stupid things?
Exactly.
It's always the woman. And I got so frustrated with that. Like, he said something really nice, and because you're a tough, strong, independent woman, you assumed he was insulting you, and like, that's the dumbest thing. And so I got very frustrated with the heroines, and it sounds like you're solving that problem by saying, hey, we're all flawed. And he's got some beliefs and she's got some beliefs, and neither one of them is perfect.
Right.
I saw a very interesting, or sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
I was just going to say, and in romantic suspense, I had gotten that advice early on. I told you from an editor about, not letting the technology take over my book, right? You also don't let the suspense and the crime and whatever's going on take over. Everything that I do that's external, what the bad guys are after, all the bad stuff that happens, that drives the love story, and that plays into the core wound of why they can't fall in love.
You talked about, I think it was in this scene, that she had done the work to recover. Well, clearly she isn't recovered, but what kinds of things did she do, and what kind of things do people do to try and recover from PTSD?
Well, we talk about her going to therapy. We talk about her going back out in public and living, forcing herself to get out of the house and live her life. We talk about her learning to shoot a gun, learning martial arts to protect herself, and to, this stalker, she had a physical encounter with this stalker and he hurt her. And if you read the book, you'll see who else he hurt. And to empower herself with the tools to survive if he shows up again, because she says she knows deep down that he wasn't done. He's going to show up again. And she's terrified, rightly so, right? But she does have that solid background of, push comes to shove, I can help myself, but this is still terrifying and I don't want this to happen
Well,
again.
it is. And I've seen some very interesting, I don't know if studies is quite the right word, like where they pitted a boys soccer team against a professional women's team, and the high school boys beat the professional women. You know, and I've seen things like that. So how does something like that play into that even the strongest women aren't necessarily a match for men physically? I mean, I suppose knowing how to shoot a gun comes into that.
Right, exactly. And in these books, it's you know, it's physical strength and it's
Mhm.
training. These are these are special forces, highly trained military guys. And
Mhm.
so, you know, when it comes to, especially in Too Lethal to Love, you know, and she's like, you know, you don't need to case the street, right? You don't need to check the house before I get out of the car. And he's like, yeah, I do, because, you know, or let me drive. No, you're not going to drive. I'm trained. You are not. And so the men make it very clear that, yes, you are strong, you are independent, and I respect that. But let's look at the facts here. I'm stronger than you. I'm more trained than you, and I can protect you. So let me do it.
Do you face any pushback from, you know, I should say, do you see the tide swinging at all to people being a little more realistic about the fact that there are differences between men and women? And it's, you know, are they more willing all of a sudden to let men protect them or read books where that's acceptable?
I think that the tide is swinging towards, and it has been for a while, towards the main female characters being stronger and not being damsels in distress. You know, where they can help themselves, they can protect themselves. But part of the process of falling in love, right, is trusting someone, is letting someone see your vulnerabilities and letting your defenses down. And so that's what plays into them falling in love and overcoming the things that they need to. So, you know, you have this woman who's putting up a front for everybody, you know, like Beth has been putting up a front, you know, for the past 2 years. And she's met Kane in book 1, right? We get the history of what happened there. And we talked a little bit about, you know, when he drove her to the hospital and when she had a nightmare. Well, we'll find out more about that later on. And she hasn't talked to Kane about why she had a nightmare. She hasn't talked to Kane about why she freaked out, right? Because she's trying to keep it together. And so once she starts to trust him, once he starts to prove that I am on your side, I'm not going to judge you, I will do anything for you, then she opens up to him and lets him see her vulnerabilities.
Okay. There's an example of this I have to comment on. So I happen to be reading a story right now, a series of books where it's about a CIA super agent. You know, he goes and fixes things around the world, right? But he happens to meet up with a woman who's about maybe 8 or 9 years younger than him, who's also a CIA super agent. And so, of course, they're drawn to each other like moths to a flame, right? And, you know, they end up having wonderful times together and things like that. But he is that inherent super agent, and he's called away, and he can't say anything about what he's doing and all that. Finally, they just have to agree to disagree, that they're never going to be together because they're going to each do their super agent stuff, and they're not going to be able to trust each other. They're not going to be able to actually be together for a long period of time because they could be called away for months or even a year or more at a time, you know, to the mission. I thought that was very interesting because it goes along with a lot of what you were saying, and yet both now, the man and the woman, are in that kind of circumstance, you know?
Yes. And so if that were a rom, I'm assuming that book did not have a happily ever after. There was no proposal or marriage at the end.
Not at all. They had to go their separate paths.
So, you know, if that were a romance, they would sacrifice things for each other, and they would somehow make it work. And that's the way a romance would play out. Right. You know, there are sacrifices that you make. You know, in most
I appreciate how you're saying this same exact story, depending what genre you're writing, is going to end very different ways. I did want to ask, obviously there are a lot of tropes in any genre. How would you say, and in fact, I talked to one romance writer, I think it was Melanie Johnson, and this was quite a few years back already. And she was saying that for her, she deliberately plants the tropes because her readers love it. And so, do you plant or avoid tropes? How are your books different from the Harlequin of the 70s or 80s?
Well, the overarching tropes for the entire series are bodyguard and protector romance.
Okay.
Alpha hero, they are absolutely, they think they're in charge. And they and found family. So there's 4 Project Viper boys, and they consider each other brothers. The leader of the program is the patriarch. There's a grandmother who's the matriarch, and as the characters come in, the family just keeps growing and growing. So it's that found family trope, which I'm finding is really popular. People like that a lot.
I really like that. When my son, the Marine, was in the Language Institute, he was telling me he had a few teachers who taught him Indonesian, one of whom actually lives near us now, although this was in California. And he told me, because he calls them Ibu, Ibu Helen and Ibu, I forget what her name was. I didn't realize there were multiple. And he was telling me how this older woman would bring them cookies and just really took them under her wing and treated them like they were her sons. And then so he had to tell me, well, Ibu Helen is probably younger than you, like by a lot. So you can't call her Ibu Helen.
The real irony there is he was in intelligence, and he was probably twice the height of most of the population. And so when he visited, it's kind of like, you're going to stick out, son.
You're not going to pass yourself off as an Indonesian to get
that's so funny. When I was growing up, my dad, spent a lot of time at the VA. And every holiday, there was always veterans at our house at the table, people who had people who didn't have family, who had no place to go for Christmas or Thanksgiving or Easter or what have you. And then I married a Marine, and my kids had 3 sets. My kids had 3 sets of grandparents. My parents, no, 4. I'm sorry, 4 sets of grandparents. My husband's parents were divorced and remarried, and then his sponsors from the Naval Academy were Grandma Kay and Grandpa Tom. And a lot of their aunts and uncles are, my husband's roommates from the Naval Academy and people he met along the way. And, it was a long time before my kids realized that they weren't biological.
That's great. We're ready for drink 3.
Great.
This is an awesome one. Here we're talking a lot of Christmas, right? So, we had a lot of choices for drinks. And my first choice was actually one of a spiked hot buttered rum, right? We're in the Midwest, we call this stuff Tom and Jerry batter. It's a brown sugar and butter batter that you mix with dark rum, and all these things, a cinnamon stick, right? And I figured if we had that, by the time we were done with this podcast, we'd be singing Christmas carols in the original German, so
you're saying that like it's a bad thing.
Right? So, and then of course we have hot toddies and things like that. But this one sounded really interesting. It's a mulled wine. And so here we have kind of a semi-sweet red wine that we mix with some mulling spices, which includes orange, cinnamon, star anise, cloves, cardamom. And, if you're really interested, you could throw in some orange zest. You can also throw in a little bit of tawny port, which we didn't happen to have with us. So, but then we heat it up over the stove, and over a mug that happens to have some raisins and almonds in the bottom of it.
Ooh.
We're going to serve this and try not to spill it everywhere. I realized the vessel I was using to serve may dribble a bit. Right. So this is, oops, of course, then I'm the one who dribbled a bit.
That's a lot.
Continue pouring, and variously depending upon where you go in the world, this is known as Grogg or Glühwein, and it is very much a Merry Christmas beverage. So Cheers with some mold.
Cheers.
One.
Right. You can just I can tilt it enough so you can see the
Yeah.
almonds and what is that, cranberries you said?
Some bit of cranberry, also some raisins.
Raisins.
That are in-
Nice.
Okay.
Oh, this is amazing. This is like inhaling a
sounds-
Christmas tree, you know.
Mm.
Yeah. I have
That's
3
really
bottles
good.
of 20 port in my house if you need them.
Oh, we love our tawny port here.
So does my dad.
Um,
That's why I have it. It's my dad's favorite.
Yeah, we had one actually, yeah, we had one waiter that every time we went to his restaurant, we asked for tawny port. Have they bought it for us yet? Have they bought it? And eventually he moved to another restaurant. And so when we showed up at that one, we saw him like ignoring. And we finally told one of the waitresses, go over there and ask him if he's got tawny port for us.
One of our favorites. We've had one 50-year bottle of Graham tawny port, and then also we got a bottle that was bottled in 1968, which was an amazing bottle to find. And it was interesting. There was we were in Duluth, Minnesota for a while, and the guy that was at the Costco, who was in the liquor department, he noticed I happened to be bringing home a lot of port one day. And he was actually in the Navy, stationed in Portugal, so he was forced to consume port almost constantly.
Oh,
And so it was very tragic, and he was very interested in port as a function of that. So I thought that was really wonderful.
Oh, neat.
we're ready for reading number 3.
Okay, so I chose a scene that had a lot of Christmas. I compare this book to Die Hard, the movie Die Hard.
Oh, yeah.
I say, but with much more holiday cheer. And so he calls her Sugar Plum, and she gets mad if there's not a Christmas tree in the room. And another trope, there's 2 other tropes in this book, forced proximity, and also, well, it's Second Chance because they met in book 1, but there's forced proximity, which is one of my favorites, and also fake dating. And so he goes home with her for Christmas. Okay, so here we go. Beth motioned to the brick colonial 2-story at the end of a cul-de-sac. That's where I grew up. Kane surveyed the quiet suburban street. Your house has the best Christmas lights on the block. It does. Green garland with red berries outline the porch and the garage. Lush wreaths with deep red bows matching the red shutters and door hung from every window. She pointed to the sled and reindeer on the roof. My father was pretty excited about those new additions. They are damn cool. My dad used to put a giant Santa on the roof of the barn when we were kids. Was the barn red? He pulled a photo from the sun visor and handed it to her. Yep, and full of horses, including my sweet girl. Oh my God, Kane, she's gorgeous. Beth stared at the huge glossy black mare standing in front of a red barn with a wreath around her neck and a Santa hat perched between her ears. She's the prettiest animal I've ever seen. What's her name? His grin brightened the cloudy day. Holly Jolly, because she was born on Christmas Eve. I knew you liked Christmas as much as I do. She wagged the photo at him. He snatched it from her hand and tucked it into the visor. Don't tell the guys I dressed up my horse. Ooh, Kane has a secret. She shimmied her shoulders in her seat. I'll be keeping that tidbit in my back pocket for the next time you piss me off. Great. He rolled his eyes. I'll make you a deal. You keep your mouth shut and I'll take you to West Virginia and give you a riding lesson once this is over. And let me drive the Buick? Don't push it, Sugar Plum. He held out his hands. Do we have a deal? She placed her palm in his and shook. Driving the Buick would be fun, but seeing him astride a horse in tight jeans and his hat under a big blue sky was worth conceding her request. Did you ever ride rodeo? Her mouth watered at the thought of him in chaps on a bucking bull. A bit, but not competitively. He pulled into the drive and turned off the engine. I watched too many friends be taken away in ambulances. I played it safe and ran track. And now a vision of Kane in running shorts, sweat pouring down his shirtless torso as he circled the red barn, had another part of her body wet. He rubbed his thigh. Get a good thing my bones were in one piece when they were blown to hell. Pain flashed in his eyes as he scanned the street. Sometimes, like when he was talking about things that deepened his dimples so much they overflowed with joy, she forgot she wasn't the only one who'd suffered and been left with scars. Following his gaze, she studied the area around her parents' place. Was her stalker lying in wait behind her neighbor's giant blow-up reindeer? Or maybe Chavez took cover on the other side of the house behind Rita and Jerry's life-size Santa village. Rita would have a fit if someone shot a hole in one of her jolly elves. Kane reached into the back seat. What's so funny? Nothing. She eyed the gift bag in his hands. What are those? He smiled and winked as he pulled out 2 red tins. One is something for us to enjoy. The other is to thank your parents for having me. They can open it when they get home. That's not necessary, but damn, it was respectful and sweet. He opened his door and slid his leg out. Where I come from, it is necessary. Oh no, there was that country charm her parents would love. Good thing they weren't around to hear him compliment their Christmas lights and witness him acting all gentlemanly. They'd get excited she finally brought someone home and she didn't want to disappoint them. She twisted in her seat to follow his movements. With efficient strides, he walked around to her side of the truck and opened the door. Cold air whipped in and she shivered. The temperature had dropped considerably since they'd left the liquor store. Come on, let's get you inside before it snows. He cupped her elbow and guided her around the car. As they approached the steps, he dipped his head to her ear. I bet when this place is lit up at night and the snow is falling, it's as sparkly as you are. I'm going to take that as a compliment. You should. He nudged the collar of her coat with his nose as he lifted his head. She could swear he sniffed her hair. Beth, is that you? Kane tensed as she spun to the familiar voice. She laid her hand on his arm. Relax, it's just my neighbor.
Oh, toast the cold with, our mulled wine.
Well, of course, here in Tennessee, it's downright balmy compared to what we're used to in Duluth. Your story reminded me of when my son, the Marine, came to visit us in Duluth. And we were at Gooseberry Falls, and below the falls, there's a pool that's maybe, a little higher than waist height. And so he had recently been in Texas. He spent most of his enlistment in Hawaii, but he was briefly in Texas. And he got a love for cowboy boots there, which I understand you share.
Yeah.
And he got a love for cowboy hats. And so he had on his Lone Star State swimming trunks, which, probably went halfway to his knees. But he was in this pool that, of course, was up to his waist, wearing a cowboy hat. And so, you couldn't see the swimming suit. And so some of my other kids were running around Gooseberry Falls, and they heard these two older women going, "There's a naked cowboy in the pool. Let's go." And it took them a minute. And they're like, "They're talking about my brother." So I thought I would show you, since we're now in Tennessee, of course, we had to get cowboy boots. So
Nice.
here are mine.
Very
and
nice.
They weren't cheap. And so I didn't want to wear them outside. So I didn't wear them for, I don't know, a year or more. Well, maybe not that long. And I finally said, this is stupid. That's what they're there for. So these are Chris's.
Yes, these are mine. Yes, with the American flag.
Yep.
Very nice.
So, do you have any of yours, or you sent me a picture with the whole collection?
I sent you a picture. They're in the other room.
Okay.
They need their own room.
Yeah, they're in my
Sort of
closet.
like
They have
Laura's
a special
dresses.
spot.
Right. Yeah. They literally need a whole other room. So, do you ride horses?
I don't. I love to ride horses. My friends and her dad each had a horse when I lived in New Jersey, and I used to every few months I would go and I would ride with her. And I really enjoy it. We have a horse now. My daughter
Wonderful.
and she jumps, and so we got our own horse a few months ago. And it's been a long time since I've been on a horse, and so when I have time, I'm gonna get myself some lessons and learn how to track it and get comfortable. So I can, like, once a week go to the barn and, tack the horse up and ride it. But it's a little disappointing because there's a bunch of women at the barn and there's no cowboys. There's no cowboy hats. Everyone's wearing English boots, and it's kind of a letdown, right? Like, I own this horse and there's no cowboy boots. There's no cowboys.
Like, if you wanted to join a polo club, you would have done that.
Right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
That seems more Maryland, though. Like, if you want cowboy boots and cowboy hats around horses, you need to come to Tennessee or Texas.
I know. And, not too far away, like an hour away, there's a place called Cowtown, New Jersey. And they have like a legit rodeo there. And, we have a friend and her daughter married a cowboy, and we just got their Christmas card, and they got pictures of their 5-year-old, like, tying up cattle and stuff, and guys their cowboy hats on their horses, and it's only an hour away from me, right? And I keep telling her how cool barrel racers are, and I'm like, come on, ride Western, and the saddles are prettier, and there's so much more bling, and she's like, no, I like to jump, and I'm like, okay.
Her daughter does a lot of that kind of acrobatic work on horses.
Yeah. I myself, I love horses, but I've had very bad experiences.
Oh no.
Including my cousin's horse ran away down the highway with me clinging to its back, and that was kind of terrifying. Yeah, and then another horse, it wasn't malicious, it was a complete accident, but it ended up stomping on my leg and left a horseshoe-shaped scar that stayed there for 2 years. You could literally even see the hash marks from the horseshoe
Oh
on my
my
leg.
The horse
It was-
was of your trombone.
Yeah, it totally was. It happened the day before we were supposed to march in the Traverse City parade.
Wow.
And so I marched anyway, but I'm interested, you know, you grew up military, you grew up Air Force, just out of curiosity, where were you stationed as you
I
grew
wasn't
up?
stationed anywhere. My dad, my
Oh, you
parents,
weren't?
no, my parents, my dad graduated. My mom was a year older than my dad. My
Mhm.
dad graduated high school. He enlisted for Vietnam. He got his orders. My parents got married, and then 2 weeks later, my dad left for Vietnam.
Mhm.
They moved to, he got back after a year. He was stationed in California. They stayed there for 2 years, and then it was time to reenlist. My mother said, we're done.
Mhm.
And we
Right.
are done. And the way the story goes is my father's commanding officer called my mother in and talked to her, and he said, where do you want to go? Where do you want to live in the world? We will send you wherever you want to go. And my mother looked at him and said, that sounds all well and good, but when that's up, you're going to send him back to Vietnam, aren't you? And the guy said, I'm not going to lie to you, we will. And my mother said, thank you very much, but no, we're done.
Yep. Yep. That's interesting. As far as I know, my dad was, I think he might have done 2 tours in Vietnam, but I could be wrong about that. So did you travel a lot being married to a Marine?
No, not really. I met my husband. I didn't meet my husband until I was 30, and we got married when I was 33. And he had just finished Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California, when I met him. And I met him in Chicago. I was working for a public relations agency, and my client sold handheld scanners, and the Marines had just bought a bunch of ruggedized scanners to be used in the field. And Gary had just finished up his master's in computer science, and he was working in acquisitions at Quantico. And he had been there like 2 weeks. He had just bought a house in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And the woman who owns the company that I work for now, our little tiny small company, that I've been with for 20 years. She unfortunately passed away last year, and I miss her so much. Her kids run the company now. And anyway, she introduced me to my husband on the trade floor. And she was like, this is Captain Gary Clement from the Marine Corps, and you're going to be working with him on the press release, and he'll be doing the reporter interviews. Wonderful. So we worked together, and then he kept calling me and calling me and calling me. And then we got married.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. And so we started dating in February. I moved down to Fredericksburg with him in July. And so I was a Marine Corps girlfriend. I was a Marine Corps fiance, but by the time we got married, he had decided to get out because we were going to get married and have kids. And so the only place we lived was, long story short, the only place like I lived with him was in Virginia.
So you're working on a book on Elvis Presley, is that right? Or does it peripherally
I want
involve-
to write a book about Elvis Presley. I don't know when I'll get around to that, because I need to do 2 Viper books next year. And then I have a small town romantic suspense called Knife to the Heart. That will be a series. It's a standalone right now, but he has 3 friends and they each need their own book. Knife to the Heart is my mom's favorite, and I promised her that get to those books soon. I have a dark romance in me that needs to come out, and I also am 75% done with a book about it's going to be a rom-com. I think I've heard it's pretty funny, and it's about an accidental kidnapping.
Oops. I have to hear more about that.
Yes, indeed.
Where can people find you online?
Kristie Wolf, just like my name, KRISTIEWOLF.com is my website.
Right.
Or where can we find you and us?
You can find us at booksandbrews.net. Also, if you go to our YouTube channel, which is at Symbol Books and Brews spelled out, you will find all our Books and Brews Light authors, most of whom I don't get up on the website just because I'm trying to live 16 lives.
Only 16? That's
Only
not
16.
30.
I'm trying to be more reasonable. You can find me and my books and everything else I do online at lauravosica.com. You can find our sponsor at gabrielshornpress.com. And you can find our farm animals and our Yeti dog.
Mount McKinley.
Right, at
Cross.
glenmuralfarms.wordpress.com.
Do you have any events upcoming?
I do. I'm going to an event in mid-January called Booked on the Hudson. It's a reading retreat in the Catskills. And they have
Very
a book
nice.
fair on Saturday, so that'll be a lot of fun. I'll be at Tempted and Tantalizing in Raleigh, North Carolina at the end of March. And I will be at Getting Witchy with It in Salem in October. The Mount Washington Book Ball. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, it's called the New England Book Ball. In April up in New Hampshire.
Very nice.
And
Stuff
a lot
going
of
on.
other
Is
places. I'm sorry.
Is that all on your website?
It's all on my website, yes. I don't
Wonderful.
know how updated. I think it's pretty updated with 2026. I've just started booking some 2027 events as well that
Wow.
will be updated soon. I do a lot of local things too, like we're having a romance festival, in our county library in February, so that'll be a lot of fun. A couple of Baltimore events, Streaming Dirty in Maryland, Romantasy in the Valley. Indies and Bookworms is a new one that's happening in Baltimore. The Book Fair at Bel Air in my town. So I
Okay.
like to keep busy. I love getting out there and meeting readers and talking about my book, and I love setting up my table and making and stuff like that.
So we had a very interesting guest this month, Laura. Do we have yet another interesting guest coming up?
Yes, we have a couple of interesting
Very
guests. We have a third one. I'm still waiting on confirmation. But the two who are confirmed are Christiane Scarpino, whose book is nonfiction on surviving a terrorist bombing, so that should be very interesting. And Juliet Cutler, also nonfiction on her stay in Africa. And she actually picked out the beers for us.
Oh, fun.
Because she knew, having been there, she had some very interesting advice, and we need to see if we can find those and order those online. So we're looking forward to that.
And there's many
So-
parts of Africa I'm not allowed to go to. Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.